channel, and today the long-awaited review of the 110. This is one of my favorites, if not my favorite Tier VIII Heavy Tank. I like this tank a lot. I like the Tiger II quite a bit. I like my Lion quite a bit, but I think the 110 kind of strikes my favorite balance between amazing armor, great gun, and pretty above average mobility for a heavy tank. So we'll just get into it here. It's got good hit points. It's got 1550. When you compare it to its main rival, basically, the IS-3, which is considered the premier heavy tank at Tier VIII by a lot of people. It's got a little bit more hit points, which is nice. It weighs 51 tons, so it's capable of ramming lighter foes pretty easily. 580 horsepower, 40 top speed. It can reach that, but it honestly has trouble keeping up with the engine power from the IS-3. It's not quite as fast as for accelerating and keeping up with pushes and rushes and stuff. So you got to kind of keep your tanks at the pace of the 110 as opposed to the IS-3s. But it is more of a breaching tank because of the pike-nosed armor in the front. And we'll get to the overall layout when we get to the armor here. The traverse is 30, and it does turn fairly decently. I don't find the tank has trouble getting around very well. And the turret traverse of 26 isn't actually that slow, and especially when you combine it with turning the hull of the tank to get your turret where you need it to go, it's actually quite good. You got a view range of 380, which isn't bad at all, and 750 signal range. And when you look at the view range compared to an IS-3, you have 30 more, which is actually quite significant. Next, we'll take a look at the armor. The armor on the tank is the absolute high point. It's completely stellar. The pike nose is so exaggerated and piked out that the real weak spot is here, the lower plate, obviously, which is like the lower plate. It's like it on every single tank, right? But when you can get people to shoot at your pike and like at this sort of angle or like that sort of angle and just waggle your nose around, this tank just bounces stuff more than almost every other tank I have. The only tanks I have that bounce more than this is my E75 and my WZ1-4, which are Tier 9 heavy tanks. And this thing is just a boss, and it's frontally compared to the IS-3, this thing is 1,000 times better in my opinion. The front of the turret is also really strong. It does have more prominent hatches than the IS-3, but the IS-3 also has that very prominent weak spot right above the gun where you can overmatch. So you've got hatches and things, but if you move around, it's from far away, it's kind of hard to hit them, but from up close, people will just, if they're higher than you, they will just aim down and shoot on you. So you got to watch out for that. The thing that you always got to watch out for in this guy compared to the IS-3 is it doesn't have spaced armor on the sides. They have the same armor quotient of 90, but the IS-3 is more capable of side scraping and reverse side scraping off corners than the 110 is, because it has the spaced armor on the side. This tank doesn't really do quite as well in that regard, but the frontal armor is a lot better. So you got to play this tank front, armor front always. Don't try and angle too much because you just want to try and hide your lower plates. If you get hull down or face hug people, this tank is boss. That's kind of how you want to play it. Now you have shit armor in the back, so don't give up your back. And your sides of your turret are actually quite strong as well, but the back of the turret, again, is pretty scheisse. Next, we'll take a look at some of the modules. The engine doesn't really upgrade to too much. You've got two turrets, the top turret being significantly better than the stock one. Now, taking a look at the gun, you've got a 100mm gun. This is really the only gun you want to use on it, but the other gun, the 122, is serviceable on this tank, but you don't really want to use it for any longer than you have to. Got a rate of fire of 6, so you shoot like about 1.5 seconds faster than an IS-3, which is nice because you need to, because you do a little bit less damage. But your stock pen is 215, only slightly less than what you get on a BL9 from an IS-3. Your APCR rounds are 265, which is very competitive and good against Tier 10 tanks and some heavily armored Tier 9 tanks. The damage across the board is 320. And that's a little bit lower than the IS-3, which has 390. But I find that the DPM makes up for that. And in a lot of situations when you're like fighting people up close, the damage doesn't really bug me quite as much because the dispersion is better. I find I can snipe with this tank a lot more effectively than I can with the IS-3. And another thing to take into account, it has -6 gun depression as opposed to the IS-3's -5, and that also comes in handy quite often for me. And another thing that I like about it is the aim time is like half a second less, so you can get shots off and you'll aim in quicker, a lot faster with the 110 than you will with the IS-3. Next, we'll take out the modules I load on this guy. I take a vertical stabilizer, and I take an enhanced gun laying drive and a rammer. Alternatively, I have run this tank with vents. I'm experimenting with the laying drive, but getting shots off that are aimed now is more important than ever, because this is a 9.6 replay where they decided to wreck all the all the accuracy stuff, and I'm not a fan of the accuracy thing. Now I've been playing this for about a week. I don't really like the accuracy changes they've made, so aiming quicker seems to be a boon for this tank for me. Now, I have a crappy crew in this thing. I only have 100% crew with like 60% crew skills because I transferred most of my crew that were really good, that I was blitzing everything with to this thing. So I have a 3-skill crew in my 1-4, but for this tank here, I've got 6 cents and then just repairs across the board. But originally, I had taken after that snapshot, clutch braking, smooth ride for shooting on the move. And this is better for when the turret's traversing. And I also had safe stowage on the 110. Some of the caveats of the armor is if you get shot down on engine bay, I've had shots go in off this little lip on here for whatever reason, and people overmatching the top of the back, which is odd, but it happens. If you got the tank backed up on anything, that can happen to you as well. But I don't find the tank's ammo rack is anywhere near as fragile as the IS-3, but you do have to watch out for shots going in through the side and the back, damaging the engine and things. It's more fragile on the sides. As far as ammo loadout, I take 25 AP, 15 APCR because sometimes you have to fight, you know, the big boys at Tier 8 or Tier 9 and 10. And then just regular stuff for my consumables. Nothing too special there. So we'll jump into some games, and you can see the 110 boss moding on people. This is going to be a 9.6 replay. This is the newest replay of the bunch, and we're on Lakeville. We don't have too much support. We've got a Tiger II that has gone to the middle, or that is coming down with us. We have a T-44 who is taking up camping position in the back. So it looks like it's going to be me and a Pershing and a Tiger II that are primarily going to have to like hold the town against the enemy team. Going up against stuff, we're going to be and probably running into their heavy tanks, which is going to be the T-32, the Pershing, STAs, and possibly the 5100 and the KV-2. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking the top part of this map. I don't like getting caught in behind the church because they can shoot in on it from their base. So the faster you can get over and take this top road or get kind of slotted in beside the church there, the better off you are. So what I'm doing now is I am contemplating what's going on. We have a Pershing, we have Tiger II. They're not actively pushing this lane, so I'm going to drive down here and I'm going to fire in the move. I got really lucky, especially with the new accuracy changes, but the 110 seems to actually do pretty well in this game for shooting on the move. I do get a couple shots in, not aiming any of them, and I want to get through these guys. I want to try and see if I can get the T-32 to back off. So I put a shot into his tracks, he gets tracked. And I'm going to keep pushing up, and he thinks he's got his front plate covered, but I can actually hit it from where I am. So I put one shot through the front of his hull. You can see I bounced a shot there, and then there's a KV-2 back there as well. And there's also a CDC who's on my ignore list because he was a dick. So I put one through the front on that T-32. Got him down to 330, and then if I roll a little bit high, I can kill him in one more shot, which is important later in the game, as you'll see. So I'm being a little bit cautious right now. Not sure if that ST1 is going to have a shot at me. So I move up because I just saw that KV-2 fired, so I want to make him pay for that shot. So I put a good one into him, roll really high, 347, which is a nice roll for the 110. Go around the corner, take a shot, doesn't pen. Doesn't have a very good angle. I'm going to roll around again. I'm going to eliminate that tank, but I take a shot from the CDC. Now that T-32 just fired, and I wasn't completely sure that he had. I was paying a little bit more attention to the CDC at that point. And I probably could have kept my Tiger alive there. I made a big mistake not paying attention that he had fired, but I was actually scoped in to the tank at that point, and I didn't see that he had fired. Otherwise, I would have rolled around and killed him. So now I'm going to come down, and I'm going to try and apply some pressure to the STA-1 and the SU-122. But as I'm coming down, I see that he's going to come around my back, so I put a shot in him, ram him for a little bit, doing 500 damage to him. That's when I realize this guy's going to come around my back, so I go forward, bounce a shot from the STA, got to try and get my armor around. And that's when I get a critical, no damage on that guy, on the SU-122-44. STA misses. And now I've just got to try and get rid of the STA, because he's got the better gun than the SU-122-44, and he's going to put a shot into me right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish off the STA-1. And now we're just going to face hug the SU-122-44, because he's going to have trouble penning the pike nose and the turret. So my gun's damaged, but I'm point blank, so I don't really need to care. I can go right through the upper plate on the SU-122 because I can angle my gun down, and I'm not really worried about penning and killing the rest of this guy. And that was it. The game was pretty quick. It was pretty fast-paced. I ended up doing 3,612 damage, 4 kills, top on the team experience with 1,118. And just in general, like the tank bounced over 2,200, 2,300 rounds, ended up getting high caliber and a steel wall out of this game. And with a broken gun, was still able to finish off the bad guys. You can see all the stuff that was getting slammed off the gun mantlet and the upper pike nose of the tank. It's just a really, really strong tank, and I have nothing but great things to say about it. And I'll show some more game action and some against tier 10s, and you can see how it can still compete even fighting above its weight class. Welcome to Westfield. I'm going to take up my favorite heavy tank spot, which basically controls the whole top northern part of the map. Alternatively, you can take the 110 into the city, but I hate all the low walls and stuff in the middle of this town. I don't like pushing through here or even fighting in there, because it's more or less just a pain in the ass playing in there for me. So we're just going to hang out here where I can use my little bit better gun depression to pound on this IS-3 and the Carnarvon. Carnarvon was actually a pretty decent player. He played a lot better than the IS-3 on their team did. And for whatever reason, they think that they can drive into that position without me shooting them. So I bounce a shot from the Carnarvon. He takes up my viewfinder, but I want to put a shot into that IS-3. So I do, and then I draw back again. Now I have shots again at the IS-3. And unfortunately, he went a little bit low and ended up shooting the ground instead. 320 damage to the ground. Now, Carnarvon pops up again. He misses a shot, so I put a shot into the side of the turret on the KV-4. Carnarvon's doing a pretty good job trying to, like, just be there and be annoying. And I've got more side shots on the side of the KV-4 turret. That's not where you want to angle your KV-4 turret, but that's what he wanted to do. IS-3 comes over the top, doesn't manage to get a shot into me. Armor ends up holding up and bouncing it out. So up here, it's basically just me and a KV-4. Everything else is in town dealing with one Tiger 1 and a Lion. So again, then I bounce a shot from the Carnarvon, and there's an IS-3, a KV-4, and a Carnarvon right around here. And I also have a Lion coming around my back, which isn't fantastic either for me. So I'm trying to pay attention to that Lion as well as kill off these guys, and I want to try and get rid of this IS-3, but I don't really want to take a shot doing it if I don't need to. So I'm just being patient. I do have a KV-4 that's up in the top. Now looking back, the Lion has managed to get himself killed, which was fantastic, so I don't have to worry about him coming around on me. So I managed to put a shot into Mr. Carnarvon, hitting him and tracking him in place and breaking his tracks, so now I'll be able to track him in place if I need to again. And I'm just trying to bait, right now, the IS-3 into shooting at me. But our KV-4 decides that the thing to do right now is to drive in there into suicide and then do no damage against any of the tanks he's trying to kill. So I put one shot into him, and I assume that the KV-4 would be able to kill him, but I don't know exactly what his plan was there, but he gets his ass kicked. And now it's me versus a Carnarvon KV-4 and an IS-3. And this is the first shot I take in the game from him, and then I take another shot from the IS-3 because the KV-4 didn't manage to kill him. So that's great. So now I'm going to try and drop back to the bottom of the hill. Our Tiger, he means well, but he doesn't need to be here. He doesn't have the frontal armor to deal with the KV-4 or the Carnarvon. He just needs to be a support fire tank or to come around them or something. And he rams into me. I don't really begrudge him for it, but he's just going to sit here and take damage. Being hulled down in this case is a good thing, Tiger 1. You just need to go away. So I tell him to fall back because he's not the tank to deal with these two tanks. He just doesn't have the capability of doing it. So I pull up, put a shot into him there, and KV-4 got a pretty lucky shot, barely glancing the lower plate weak spot of the 110. And now I'm just trying to worry about this Carnarvon, who is poking his head over the top. And hats off to the Jagdpanzer IV. He was a gamer. He did play, and he didn't run away like a lot of Tier 6 tanks do, or heavies that run off the hill. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to hit exactly that strip on the side of the KV-4. Probably a pretty good chance it would have gone in. And right now I'm loading APCR just because I want to try and finish off these tanks. And unfortunately, again, the shot goes low and ends up shooting the ground instead of the bottom part of the turret, which is where I wanted to shoot this guy. So I put one more into the Carnarvon, and now I'm going to back up. And just pretty much, I know that the gun depression on the KV-4 isn't fantastic. And he gets distracted by the Tiger, so I'm going to pull up, put a really low damage shot into him. And then he finishes off the Tiger 1. But now it's just me versus him. And our IS-3 and IS are closing in on him. KV-4's got a pretty tough turret. Even that machine gun port thingy on the top is pretty strong. And I'm not going to feed him any more damage if I don't need to. And I can see that the IS is coming around on him. So what we're going to do is just shoot him again in the hatch. But he also managed to shoot me in the hatch as well. You can see where these shots have gone in. Lower plate, on the hatch. Everything else has just been kind of whatever. And then the IS rolls in and ends up finishing him off. I just didn't want to die at this point. So, did a pretty good job in the game. Ended up doing 3,079 damage. And second on the team in experience. Armor held up, did pretty well. And just in general, not a bad game from the 110. Managed to use the gun depression to a fairly good degree. And had to deal with all those tanks just because our KV-4 just decided that he needed to suicide into the group of them doing 0 damage. So the game probably would have gone faster and been a little bit smoother if he hadn't done that, but it was interesting, and I got to use the armor of the 110 and finish the game out. Now in this game we have a different setup of enemy tanks. We've got a worst case scenario where we're in a tier 10 and 9 game. But there's not too many of them. There's only one tier 9 and 4 tier 10s, which is kind of odd. Everything else is tier 8s. But I'm going to end up fighting all the tier 9s and 10s, so this is where you can see specifically that the 110 is still able to hold its own against even higher tier opponents. So I can see that our Foch has moved up, and he's bouncing some shots. And I don't want to get in the tier 10's way and the tier 9's way, so I'm going to back up. And make sure I don't block shots from the E100. I'm just waiting so I don't block shots from him. So what I'm doing now is I'm surveying what I have to shoot at. And if I can take out the 5100 and anything that's an autoloader, I do so because it's a really soft target. So I can see that the Foch is backing out. He doesn't want any more of this. Our E100 is taking damage, so I'm going to try and get in there and provide some extra damage for the team. So I'm going to pop around, And I've got APCR loaded because I'm a whore. And I'm going to shoot the E75 in his hatch. And I might have still been able to do this with AP rounds, but it was a tier 10 game, and I was going to fight all their heavy tanks and all their tier 10 stuff over here. So I figured I might as well try and do what I can against this higher tiered stuff. So I'm shooting through this tiny little hole into the E75's weak spot, and he's not moving enough, and he's making it an easy target. So I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to keep shooting him there if he's going to let me do it. So that's me finishing off a tier 9 heavy tank, the E75, because he couldn't really return fire. He didn't want to take shots from the E100, so it allowed me to just pop in there and hit him. So I switched back to AP rounds because I don't need them against a Waffenträger E100. And gonna finish him off so he doesn't put any more rounds into our E100, Jagdpanzer. Now the only stuff left over here at this point is this 1500, so I will roll around, roll a little bit low with a 314 roll on him. And there's a T-34 there as well, but there's also a T-30 back there and an Object 263. So the T-34 is in the back, and I'm on full hit points, so I don't really need to worry too much, but then I see that the T-30 is there, so I've got to be somewhat careful that I don't take too much damage. And there's the 263. I ended up bouncing a shot from the 263, which I thought was pretty cool, and ended up hitting him and doing damage to him through his track area, which was pretty neat. You can see where it bounced off the pike nose, right off the pike. I'm going to roll around, and I got shots at the hull in the T-30, and I know that's guaranteed damage against a high tier tank, so that's what I'm going to concentrate on. And we were rolling them at this point, but I just was pretty happy that I was able to do damage to these guys. Going to roll around again on the T-30, putting shots through his hull. And do I have a shot here? End up shooting the wreck, I think, because it has bad collision. And now the only thing left to do is roll in on this Object 263 and take him out. And since I'm at full hit points, I don't particularly care if I get hit. He can only hit me for 650. So I'm going to try and shoot him on the move if I can. And I was going to try and get his side here. I'm going to see if I can get it. But no, I didn't wait long enough. I should have waited an extra second and killed him right here, but the timing was a little bit whatever. But at the end of the day, ended up doing pretty okay in a tier 9-10 game, fighting all their higher tier tanks, doing 2,666 damage with 2 kills, and tops on team EXP, and bounced only one shell that game from the 263, but that was their highest tier tank with really, really high pen. So you can see that the upper plate on the 110 is fantastic, especially when you don't really angle it too much and they can't or don't shoot at your lower plate. So just in closing, the 110 is, in my opinion, probably the best tier 8 heavy tank in the game. A lot of people love the IS-3, and I understand that. It has attributes that I like as well. But for how I play and a higher tempo DPM game, I like the fact that this thing can shoot faster, and the frontal armor is better than the IS-3. I like the gun better. It has better accuracy. It aims faster. It shoots faster. The frontal armor is just plain better. The turret's strong. The only weak spots in the tank are really its side armor, and if it gets dropped on by artillery, and stuff that overmatches the top on the engine bay, and stuff that gets around the back. But once you can get around and face hug people, the tank is extremely strong, and the APCR rounds allow you to engage higher tier targets with absolutely no problems whatsoever. The tank is also used in esports a lot simply because of these attributes, because it's so strong frontally, and the gun is really good. There are some teams that won't use the 110, but overall, in general, I've found much better success with the 110 in team battles consistently over and over again compared to the IS-3. And it gets my seal of approval. It's my favorite tier 8 heavy tank. I like it better than the Carnarvon, the Tiger II, the Lion. It's just really, really, really strong. And once you get it fully upgraded, it's definitely worth a buy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.